Welcome back, everybody. This is Lush Life, no labels. I'm Alfredo,
And I'm Michelle.
and now we're already on our ninth episode, still going strong. So,
Yes,
to,
we are.
so Michelle told me something very interesting that happened to her, and I think that she should share it with all of our listeners as part of the story of the week. So, go ahead.
Yes, so this week I went to see WWE WrestleMania at a pretty big venue. And as someone who has only seen some episodes of WrestleMania over 10 years ago, it was actually pretty entertaining to see the audience get really hyped up with the wrestlers, the outfits that they wore, the smack talking they were doing. And initially, I didn't think I would have as much fun as I did, but it was a fun experience.
Is this the WWE thing where the men wear like hats
Speedos.
and speedos and like boots?
Yes, one guy wore a mask so you couldn't see his face. And they basically they do individual fighting or they tag team.
Is it real fighting though?
No, it looks like it's choreography, which is why for me, initially I would prefer to see UFC where there are actual stakes in the game. But I get why people like WWE because it's a fun, lighthearted piece of entertainment that you can just go and see for a few hours with loud music, chant for the people you want to win.
But would you say that of the audience, the people that were attending the event were more engaged or more
Yes,
invested in it than
a
you?
lot of people were so into it. There was one woman in front of me who was standing up the entire time, and every time a new person came up to fight, then she would be standing up and either booing for, or she would boo the person she didn't like, or she would be cheering on for the person she did like. So a lot of people were into it. People brought t-shirts and posters of their favorite people too. So it was pretty good.
So that is a good segue into the topic that we wanted to get into this podcast, and that was entertainment, leisure, and hobbies. Because, for some people, maybe they're really into WWE. That's not my personal case, but apparently they get t-shirts, they know the people's names. So, everybody has different activities that they like to do. And that's what we're going to get into today. It's
Yes.
funny it's funny that you say that about the t-shirts because on a similar note, I think, now that the pandemic is over, all these different artists are going on tour and you're
Mm-hmm.
hearing about all these different concerts that are happening, right? Like I think we all know someone that went to the Eras concert or War Renaissance for Beyonce.
I had a friend who traveled from a different country to go to the Eras tour, and a friend who went to three different locations for the Renaissance. So these people, I would say, are pretty big fans of these artists. But I would say for you and I, in terms of entertainment, we don't go to concerts that much, but we have gone to. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the concert you were recently invited to? That was a surprise for you.
Yeah. Well, the thing that made me think about the concert I went to was when you said about the t-shirts, because a friend of mine invited me to go to a Sam Smith concert where I live. And I'm not really a fan. Like I know some of his songs, I can get down to some of his music, but I would never be like, yeah, like I'm going to the Sam Smith concert. But I went, because I got invited for free, so obviously, like, why not? And it was a good experience, but some people were hardcore fans. Like they had the t-shirts and they were like dressed up.
Did
So
they know all the songs and the dances?
yeah, maybe they studied the set list and everything. But it was a good experience. And, going to concerts can be really fun. I know
When
you've had some concert experiences too.
there's one concert. So I went to a WizKid concert last year with a friend of mine, and I'm a pretty big WizKid fan, Afrobeats fan. So I was excited to go to this, but I was severely irritated by WizKid because not only was he running on African time, so he was very late, but he did not, when he actually, not only was he running on African time, so he was very late, but he did not perform for as long as I felt he should have when he finally came out. I felt like his hype person, the opener, was a better performer of his songs than he was of his own. When I go to concerts, I want the person to move around and be more entertaining and more lively than I felt he was. So even though he's actually having another concert in my city very soon, I'm still irritated by his behavior last year. So I don't want.
That makes me sad though, because lately I've been getting into Wizkid a lot and I love his music, but
Don't get me wrong, he is a good musician, but I didn't feel that his stage presence convinced me to go back to another concert, even though I still listen to his music.
yeah, no, it's interesting you say that too, because for example, I was never a hardcore Beyonce fan, but then my friend took me to her Formation tour, and from then on, I'm a pretty hardcore fan because she has an amazing stage presence. She sings, she
Yes.
dances. She
Mm-hmm.
definitely makes an incredible effort to make the show an experience in itself. But besides going to concerts or really going to WWE wrestling, WrestleMania or whatever it is, I think that the general idea behind all of this is that it's important to force yourself to leave your comfort zone and try new things and go to different types of events.
Yes, for sure. And I know that for me, I do try to have at least a few activities that I enjoy doing in my leisure time. And sometimes it's an activity that I just go to one or two times. And then there are some that become more of a habit. And those I would consider more of a hobby versus just a one off concert that I go to every.
True, I guess that's just entertainment, but a true hobby, I think you have to be doing it regularly for it to count as a hobby.
Exactly.
But sometimes it's hard to find hobbies as an adult. We've talked about this a lot where, you know, as a kid, things are very structured for you, right? And there's all these activities for you to do, and it's more than encouraged for you to do different activities as a kid. Not just that you go to school, but then there's all the after school things. I'm sure you did different things.
Yeah, for sure. Growing up, I did a few different activities, sports, dance, art. But when we're growing up, it's already curated for most schools, at least within your curriculum or it's offered at school. So they can give you a list and you kind of just decide what you want to do. And it's built into that day already, unless you're doing something after school. But as an adult, what I found more difficult is not only finding hobbies or types of entertainment that you enjoy, but everything costs money, or most things cost money. So you have to account for that. And then also the timing of these hobbies and how they work in your schedule of going to work or doing some other things that you're prioritizing.
Exactly. I think that that's the hard part because as an adult, I guess we can assume that most people work 40 hours a week or whatever amount, somewhere around there. And, if you work 8 to 5 at an office and then you leave, it might be hard for you to find something to do, or maybe you're just tired and you don't want to do anything. And I think that's what we've talked about a lot is it's hard to kind of force yourself to have hobbies when, naturally you'll just want to go home and eat and just stay at home after like the work day.
Exactly. So, what are some hobbies that you've done in the past or are currently doing now that you've enjoyed?
Well, it's interesting because I've thought about this myself and I'm like, am I a loser? I don't really have hobbies, I mean, really, or am I just really lame and basic? Because
Do you think it's
I
basic to not have a hobby?
Well, let me explain. So I was an athlete in school and I like to be physically active and I do go to the gym probably 5 or 6 times a week and I spend a good hour and a half there. And that is really my main hobby at this point. I've done CrossFit before as well. And that's what takes up most of my time outside of work during the week, basically. On the weekends, obviously, you have more time to do different things, but
Mhm.
I would say that's my main hobby. So that's why I'm like, am I really basic or lame? My
Are there
hobby is
some,
just going to the gym.
yeah, I mean, you're talking about going to the gym. I know that a lot of people do go to the gym, but they go for weight loss or bulking up or other things like that. So for you, I know you, of course, like to exercise to stay fit, but do you also find it fun? Because for me, I think one thing that separates something like just going to the gym to lose weight and doing CrossFit, which someone can genuinely find fun, is that aspect of entertainment. There's extra entertainment involved in a hobby than there is for something that we think are just standard, like someone who likes to cook a lot. Maybe they like it because they like to experiment with different recipes, and that I would consider a hobby than just them cooking every day for lunch and dinner.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I mean, for me, going to the gym is kind of like my alone time where I get to be in my head and be physical. Obviously, some people have manual labor jobs, but I think most people aren't physically active in the jobs they have. So for me, going to the gym is the time where I can put in music and be in my own world and kind of be physically active in a lifestyle where you're not usually physically active.
Mhm.
And it's kind of therapeutic for me to have that time, and I put on music I like. I feel like I'm at the club with my AirPods with the noise cancellation and all that. But I have tried other hobbies, but I would really say of things I do very frequently, that's the only one.
You mentioned music and going to the club. I know you go out.
Yeah, but is that a hobby? Is that like
Well, that's actually
hobbies
my
are going
question.
out?
Is going out a hobby, or do we need to do an actual activity to consider it a hobby for
That's
you?
hard because I do feel like and that's why I'm like, am I just really basic? Like my hobbies are going to the gym and going out on the weekend. I don't know. I think that's just more in the leisure and field, right?
I agree. I think going out, for me at least, going out is more leisure entertainment based than a hobby. For me, I like to hike, which is something I consider a hobby. I do it pretty frequently, weather permitting. And I actually travel to go on hiking trips. So it's something I'm very passionate about and I like to do. I've tried other hobbies, drawing or painting, and I can't draw for shit. My stick figures look crazy. They look crooked. So what I found out about things around drawing and painting is that it's just not for me. I don't find it fun because part of me with hobbies is there has to be something I'm getting out of it. And if I'm struggling to draw a stick figure, I'm just not going to find that activity fun at all. But there are other types of artistic,
Creative.
creative activities like photography. That is something that I do. I've done a little less and I want to get back into it. But that's something that I actually find entertaining. It works for me. I know how to take photos. I know how I want to take them. I can be more creative in that space, but it's something that I don't do as much. So I have to figure out how to get back into something like that to break up the monotony of just going to work.
Yeah, it's interesting though. I'm in the same situation where I'm not a very creative person. Like maybe I'm musically inclined and I like dance and music, but I'm not good at drawing or painting or anything like that.
Mhm.
But it's something I ask myself, like what should I be trying to make myself do new things? Why is this important? Or am I okay with where I'm at?
On
Do
one
you
hand,
think it's important to make yourself have a hobby? If I'm good with just the way I'm doing things now.
I don't think anyone should make themselves do anything, especially when it comes to a hobby, which is supposed to be something voluntary that you do for yourself. If there's nothing that you particularly want to do, then it's not necessarily worth it to force yourself to do it. What I would say though is that if you don't feel as fulfilled in your day to day as it is, or you feel as though there's something missing from your scheduling, I would definitely encourage people to at least try something out once or twice. When I considered painting, I went to Target and I bought a color by numbers painting canvas, which everything comes in it, the paint is in there, all of that. And basically, it's just up to you to do it. Obviously, I didn't finish the painting because it was a mess. But I realized that, you know what, this only cost me less than $10 to figure out if I like painting or not. I didn't need to break the bank to go to a painting class just to figure that out. So sometimes it's only about trying a little bit of that activity that you're considering just to see if it's going to work for you or not. I do know there are some hobbies that take some time to get into, but
Yeah,
that really depends on what people want. But I guess my answer is I don't think anybody should force themselves, but I also don't think you should close yourself off to everything. Maybe your friends do something and you just want to go with them one time and see how that is.
yeah, but I always respect people that have very interesting hobbies and they're very dedicated to different types of activities and they really invest a lot of time. For example, one of my coworkers is into like flamenco dancing and she like is like goes multiple days a week to do flamenco.
That's really cool.
And I think that's really cool.
I
And I
wanted
feel
to
like
try that actually after I went to Spain last year.
but so to me, it's like I think I respect those people a lot, but I don't think that I have like a very exquisite, unique hobby in that way, like someone like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we necessarily need to compare ourselves to other people. As I said, I think personally, as long as I feel fulfilled in my hobbies, that's what matters to me. But if I don't feel fulfilled, for example, now I'm really thinking a lot about how can I find new hobbies and new activity to do. Sometimes it's just, oh, I just want something to do in the wintertime so that I don't need to go outside to be doing the hobby. So it's about finding something I can do at home. So sometimes people have different reasons for having different hobbies too. And I think it's all about just figuring out what is something that can keep your attention for at least an hour or two a week and something that you actually find value or fun or excitement outside of your work.
And I also, now that we're talking about this, it just occurred to me that you could even consider making you and me as friends, making this podcast a hobby.
It is a hobby, you're right.
We're not making money off of this, so it's a hobby, I guess. But
It's a hobby. You're right. And actually, I mean, you mentioned the COVID before and how these concerts are starting now. I do think COVID affected a lot of different parts of people's lives. And part of it was hobbies, or at least for me.
yeah,
COVID
people
helped
were baking
me.
bread, right? Weren't people baking bread and
People were making bread, people were baking those cakes that look like shoes, right? They have a
what?
show on Netflix where it's like a computer, and if you slice into it, it's actually a cake. It's called Is It Cake?
What? Okay, I
People
did
became
not hear
very
about
creative because a lot of people were bored. We didn't have anywhere to go. We were struggling with COVID. So I do think that was a time when a lot of people leaned into maybe some weirder hobbies, um, and
yeah.
discovered some things about themselves maybe they didn't know before.
Yeah, but I do think that honestly, now that we're saying this podcast, we've been doing it for maybe 2 months, maybe. I don't know how long it's been. And
Mhm.
it kind of is a hobby for us, I think, as well. And first off, these are things that we talk about all the time just as friends, and we wanted to share all of these conversations that we have about life and, all the things we go through with other people and with our friends and with people that can relate to the things we go through. And I've had a lot of fun creating the podcast with Michelle and also the guest stars we've had. We've laughed a lot and had a lot of fun. So I guess
See,
this is kind of a hobby too.
you're not lame. You have a podcast.
That's
So
my hobby.
that's your hobby.
You know what else is like? I could be like a SoundCloud DJ. That's another become a DJ. That's
Are you
another.
gonna send us your mixtape? Actually, when I went to WWE, I went with my boyfriend, and literally soon as we sit down, some man next to us just hands us these two business cards and whispers, I just released a mixtape. Please listen to it. And I
Wow.
was so surprised. I'm like, sir, this is WWE entertainment. I'm not here to be listening to anybody's SoundCloud album. Like, this is not the time for that.
I feel like that's very like early 2000s though. I feel
It's
like
very
people
early 2000s, giving a CD or giving somebody your mixtape. What he should have done was give me like a link. That's what people do. Don't give me a business card.
yeah, you need to go like viral on TikTok or
Exactly.
but yeah, no. So you're right. We do have our own hobbies. So to wrap things up, what are some questions that you would ask to our listeners?
Some questions that come to mind, which I'm actually thinking about for myself, is how much time do I have to dedicate to a hobby?
That's a good question. And you have to
And
be honest with yourself, right?
exactly. You don't want to start overwhelming yourself with these. The other question I'm considering is am I just trying to fill my time? Or can I actually find something I genuinely enjoy doing that I'm not just going to drop after?
That's a good question. And I also think that, some things require a commitment. So you have to know, how much time you actually have and how much time you're willing to give for that
And
activity.
money.
Oh, and yeah, that's the other.
If you decide you want to go into skiing, you're going to have to
That's true. I
pay
feel like if you're
a
rich,
lot.
you can have all these like weird hobbies too. Like if you're like Elon Musk, you can do this like weird stuff they do because they have a lot of money.
Yes,
I'm gonna go collect
rocks.
cheeses or something. I don't know, collect wines from different regions of Italy. I feel like that's like
Yeah, so that's the other thing, right? There is a range of cost to any hobby that you do. So thinking about where you stand and how much money to spend without breaking the bank.
all right. Well, I think those are some really good questions to wrap things up. So thank you, Michelle, and thank you to everyone for listening. This
Yes, yes.
was Lush Life,
Life, no
no
label,
labels. Have a
and
really
see
good
you
week.
next time.
See you next time.